Welcome, moviegoers. How are we doing? Good, good. Do you have your ticket? All right, what do we have here? Real Swell. Good choice. You're going to be in Auditorium 58. It's straight ahead and to the left. Enjoy. Daredevil Born Again, Episode 7. The investigation is underway to find out as much information about Muse as possible after Isabella, Hector's niece, has escaped from his dungeon of sorts, and after having been rescued by Daredevil. The police visit this dungeon and they are collecting all of this evidence, and as they are wrapping up, they notice all of these paintings, these murals, all of these canvases with drawings of people's faces on them, and they find a piece of cloth that has some of Muse's blood on it, actually. And the lead detective reports all this back to the mayor, Wilson, and she comes up with a name, a suspect she's pretty confident who might be Muse. Now, Muse's name is Bastion Cooper, and he has a very troubled past, and we are told that he has a background in Taekwondo. And there's a story that the detective tells of his Taekwondo instructor being murdered several weeks after taking him on as a student. So they built this profile and they present it to Fisk and say, this is likely your guy. You might want to look more into this. What they also discover is that Daredevil was also there. And Wilson actually prized this out of the detective because he heard that Isabella had remembered that it was Daredevil who saved her. And he wants to know, again, if Daredevil, a masked vigilante, is out here doing a better job than he can as mayor and as the police force can. He wants to stomp out all acts outside the law. That's his mission as mayor, as the new Wilson Fisk, this reborn Wilson Fisk. Or at least that's the image he wants to portray to the people and to the city. Well, he's not very happy to get confirmation from the detective that, yeah, Daredevil was there, and he's likely to have saved this look. Well, he then calls in Buck, his right-hand man, who has been working closely with Vanessa, running the Empire while he was away. And Buck kind of says to him, is it really a problem that Daredevil is out there pursuing Muse? I mean, he's helping protect the city. You don't live in that world anymore. It's probably okay. He just got rid of a serial killer. And then Wilson goes on this monologue about how Daredevil destroyed his life as Kingpin, and he can never forgive him for that. It was almost whiny. Like, it was just a woe is me kind of, I was a criminal and then someone stopped me. But then he also tried to paint it as, not only did Daredevil stop me and ruin my life, but he ruined the lives of all of my employees. He called them associates, he called them blue collar millionaires, as if they weren't criminals profiting from the harm and destruction of other people's lives. I thought that was kind of funny. Well, they agree to disagree. And we then see Vanessa visiting with Luca. And Luca is coming to her trying to get some kind of understanding for what Fisk's endgame really is. Why does he want to be mayor? And Vanessa doesn't have an answer and actually says, I don't have to explain my husband's actions to you or to anyone. And they kind of have this covert conversation that insinuates things were better when Vanessa was running things. Things was better when Wilson wasn't in the picture. And we should probably get back to those days. And it's insinuating that they're going to take out Wilson, get him out of the way so that the Empire can run like it used to be. Because now that he's back, their work can't be done properly. They can't make as much money as they were making when he wasn't around. There are things that they can't do now because he's there and married to Vanessa. And Vanessa kind of has this look on her face like, yeah, I kind of agree, but I'm not going to outwardly say it. So they go their separate ways to ponder the decision that needs to be made. All the while, Daredevil is back down in Muse's dungeon looking for additional clues because Wilson's now task force is also there. He sent his group to collect additional evidence that may have been left behind during that initial sweep. And as they are leaving, Matt drops down from the ceiling to kind of rummage through what's left. And as he's searching through all these things, he comes across this binder with all these photos or paintings, these drawings. And as he's feeling the canvases, he begins to feel a pattern that 3 or 4 of these, as he shuffles through the 20 or so that he's got, 3 or 4 of them feel the same. He can recognize that they're faces, and then he picks up on one of them, one of these faces, repeating 3 or 4 times. And then he notices that the contour of how these murals have been drawn, it feels like Heather's face. Heather is his girlfriend. I finally learned her name. That took way too long. But Heather is Bastion Cooper's therapist. He's been seeing her this entire time. And I believe the first episode where we meet Heather, she gets a book signed by this Bastion Cooper. And you get this weird feeling like, who is this guy? Why does he seem creepy? Because he seemed creepy in that interaction. And later on in that episode, they connect to form a client-doctor relationship. And she's been seeing him ever since. Now, what no one knows, of course, though, is who this Heather is and why that face is so important and how she relates to Bastion. But as Daredevil is rummaging through these and putting those dots together, one of the men from the task force actually comes back and catches Matt down there. And Matt throws a baton at him and knocks him out. Well, when he comes to, he immediately calls Fisk and says, hey, Daredevil was down here. He was looking at these pictures of the psychiatrist. Her name is Heather. Heather actually is also Wilson and Vanessa's marriage counseling therapist. So he immediately knew who this person was too and kind of lamented the fact that she would be in danger, or at least that's what it looked like on his face. So he sends his task force to her office to catch Muse, to stop him and make sure that he's brought to justice and then paraded around the city as this capture and this promise that he fulfilled. Well, Daredevil made it there before they did. In fact, he was there half an hour before they did. But as those two entities are converging on Heather's office, we get a scene with Heather and Bastion. And this scene is happening concurrently with them putting the pieces together who Bastion is. Heather and Bastion are talking with each other, and Bastion is opening up even more, mostly to the audience, about who he is and what he's been doing this entire time. He's essentially admitting to the audience, hey, it's me, I'm Muse. And Heather is catching on. She's like, oh, all right. And she tries to direct the conversation away from whatever he has planned, because you can see it on his face that he's building up to something. So much so that either his excitement or that his nose is broken from the fight he had with Daredevil, it begins to bleed. And he notices and begins to draw what looks like him with his Muse mask on. And then Heather sees it and then puts it together 100%. Oh, this is Muse and I'm in danger. Well, he attacks her, tries to open up her arm. He actually slices her arm open and he lays out this canvas where he is about to create his last piece, essentially. And as he hears the police coming up the street, he says, no, not yet. Again, as if they're interrupting whatever it is he's trying to do, his final message. Well, the two of them struggle, and he is trying to fight with Heather. He's got her tied up, but she's still fighting back, of course. She's fearing for her life at this point. And Daredevil bursts through one of the windows, and the two of them begin their altercation. And there are two things happening. One, Daredevil is fighting for Heather, but also he needs to stop this serial killer. So he is, no pun intended, seeing red at this point and is getting ready to take out Muse once and for all. But in a last-ditch effort, Muse sees an opportunity to make Heather his last victim. But before he can do that, he is attacked again by Daredevil, and he is punching and choking and getting ready to end him. And then we hear gunshots. Heather has managed to pick up a gun that Muse was carrying, which was odd to me that he had a gun. But again, it was part of his bigger plan, but it was just odd that the time that we have spent with Muse, we've never seen him with a gun, and now he does. I have an issue with how they did this character, but we'll save that to the end. She manages to pick up that gun and she shoots Muse, and he is done. But she herself has suffered grave injuries, not life-threatening, but if untreated, she would probably bleed out. Well, Daredevil administers first aid and is able to get out of there before Wilson's task force busts through the doors. They get there, they see Heather on the ground, they see that she's been stabilized, so they call EMT, get a truck up there, or to the office to get her to the hospital, and then they notice that Muse is dead. And they call Wilson, and he himself comes to the office as well to see what went down, how it all went down. And he steps into the office, sees the carnage, and one of the captains, or the sergeants, is describing to him, hey, Daredevil was here. He's actually the one who took out Muse. We were too late. To which Wilson responds, well, it was probably hard for anybody to tell, right? There was a lot going on. You guys are heroes. My task force. You protected the city this day. You stopped Muse. Daredevil wasn't here, right? And the sergeant agrees, and then he excuses himself. He just walks out of the room. So, because there wasn't anyone necessarily there to corroborate what actually happened, yes, Wilson can spin the tale that his task force did, in fact, stop Muse. Until we get a scene of BB's report. She has eyewitness account of Daredevil busting through that window of that office. And it's online, it's everywhere. The rumor mill is that it was Daredevil who stopped Muse. Well, BB is friends with Daniel, one of the aides for Wilson Fisk, and he remembers a while back when he told her something he shouldn't have about Wilson. She put it in her news report, and then it blew up in his face. So he calls her into Wilson's office one night to essentially threaten her and tell her to kill the story that Daredevil stopped Muse, because this is a win for Wilson, and we need you to stamp this out, or your life could be very, very bad forever. And she doesn't necessarily answer him, but it's implied that she is not safe reporting the news anymore. We also have Vanessa and Luca continuing their conversation about what is to be done about Wilson. And Vanessa is sitting at home, and she's in a text message to Luca that says, "This location, he's alone." Luca gets the text message and he heads to a restaurant where Wilson is having dinner by himself. And he walks in, and it's kind of funny that the scene tries to trick you into believing Wilson is actually in danger. And not even because he's a main character of sorts, but it's still Wilson Fisk. He's not going to be sitting at a restaurant by himself to get snuck up on. And no, he's not there by himself. Buck is there. Luca walks in. He pulls a gun. Wilson doesn't even flinch, and Buck shoots him in the head. And then there's this, I guess, a joke. Wilson tells Buck to call Vanessa and ask if she wants me to bring home any of this food. As if, hey, call my wife, tell her it didn't work. But it also could have been, hey, you were right. This dude just tried to kill me. Oh, by the way, what do you want for dinner tonight? It could have gone either way, really. And either one is actually kind of hilarious. Now, that's where the episode ends. But I do want to talk about Mute and Marvel's tendency to kill off villains. Now, maybe it's superhero movies in general recently, but we got 2 episodes where Muse interacted with Daredevil. I would say 3.5 episodes of Muse being a character in general, and us learning about who he is happened just now in episode 7, and 7 to 8 minutes of dialogue, and that's all we need to care about. We're just going to move on now. Now, of course, the ramifications of Muse having been around will probably linger, but Muse didn't have to die. If you needed a villain to just serve a purpose, to tell a story, like create one or find a lesser known one, it's just odd that Muse was a captivating character and they didn't see fit to use him to its fullest. Now, the argument could be made there isn't enough room We've got other villains we also want to introduce. We've got Wilson, of course, who is the main antagonist, so to speak. But it just feels like he was wasted. Muse was. It feels like the actor was wasted. Like he did great in this particular episode in those 8 minutes of dialogue, but there was more he could have given. There was more this character could have brought to the show. And every time this happens, whether it was this show or a lot of the Marvel movies that have come out or the superhero movies that have come out, where the villain just comes and goes, and then we're on to the next one because there's another story. The villains don't have to die, I guess is the point that I'm trying to make. What to do with them, I don't know. But I know we have to bring these characters down to earth, so to speak. And if you aren't going to kill them, then what are you going to do? Are you just going to allow them to run around and forget? Yes. Just let them be in the background and be a threat at some other point in the story. It's just weird that trend continues to this day. Thank you for coming to this screening of Real Swell. I hope you enjoyed. As you head out, I've got 3 things to ask of you. Number 1, pick up your trash. These ushers don't get paid enough. Number 2, make sure you are following so you don't miss the next screening. And number 3, hit that heart for me. I'll see you all next time. Make sure you've got your ticket.